Be sure to check out our sponsor, the War for the Tower podcast. Also, Jeff Richardson does Shattered Worlds RPG, an RPG that he invented, and an arts and interview show called Everything is Awesome. You can find all of them by searching War for the Tower, Shattered Worlds, or Everything is Awesome on your podcatcher. This is an Unspoiled Network podcast. This is Some Spoiled, a Song of Ice and Fire. Part 2. The co-host, Switcher. The rereading. Return to Westeros, HBO's spoiler edition, uncut, uncensored, and too hot for TV. Bringing you the greatest hits from 98. Call in with your requests now. In these chapters, which are chapters 20 and 21, Tyrion and Bran. That's how he says it. Bran. We have Tyrion going to check out the wildfire. And it's extremely volatile and very dangerous. And then he goes and talks to a person who also fits those descriptions. And Bran gets visited by some frog eaters. They are not French. So, just to straighten that out, welcome to Unspoiled.
Monsters are dangerous, and just now kings are dying like flies.
I am the king!
Fuck the king.
Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha.
I'm Rashawn.
So, these two chapters are sort of the gearing up into a new segment of the story for each of these characters.
Oh.
Tyrion's going and consulting on the wildfire, as far as I can recall, seems pretty similar to what happens in the show. Is that right, as far as you remember?
As far as I remember, it's very similar. There's a couple of little bits in the book that it's possible were mentioned in the show, and because I didn't understand the relevance, just, flies right over your head.
Right.
But when you're reading and there's talk about how there's a bunch of wildfire under the sept, you're like, oh.
Yeah, right. And I also really do enjoy how careful Tyrion is, because he's like, yeah, I'm not going to tell Joffrey about the wildfire because that kid's a fucking nightmare anyway. And we don't need him figuring out that he can have men burned alive. Like, we don't need to add that to his repertoire of fun activities. So I thought that was displayed excellent judgment. This section starts off with him going down into the sort of like catacombs where they store what they call the substance.
The substance. This, I don't remember if the show really captured or if I just didn't appreciate, but the Alchemist Guild as a whole, and then this particular gentleman who's escorting him around, and his name is it Hallen?
I'm trying to find the spot. Let's see. Hallen. I think it's Hallen, yeah.
This whole, the way they refer to each other is wisdom. Wisdom's, so-and-so, insert last name.
Right.
And then there's a moment where Tyrion is like, they are clearly trying to impress me with their wealth of hidden knowledge. And it's just like, they want him desperately to be like, oh, tell me more about that thing.
Oh, wow. I had no idea.
Right? And also, how interesting is it that this guild was sort of supplanted by the maesters coming into power, and I guess it's kind of like witchcraft suddenly being replaced with like science.
I mean, alchemy was sort of supplanted by like actual science. So it's not actually that far off from how it really went, I would think.
But and it's because I think for me, when I think about the Maesters, a lot of the time I'm thinking of them as being like just a step above witchcraft them their damn selves, you know?
Right, yes, fair.
But for the time, to your point, it would very much be like, you know, better knowledge and, you know, science and a better understanding of the world. And then these alchemists are just sort of relegated to these, you know, like his robes are all ratted and tattered. And, you know,
this is his finest. This was what he could afford.
And, you know, there's a lot of talk about, like, the old days when they used to, you know, work for the king and they were respected and I would imagine well-funded, you know, and all that kind of stuff. Whenever I think about alchemy or alchemists, I can't think of anything besides Gargamel. I think that's come up for me in another podcast over the years, and my obsession / devotion to the Smurfs.
I keep forgetting that's a thing, and it's so weird to me. I cannot emphasize enough how bewildered I feel every time I remember it or you remind me of it. What was he doing? Like, did he create the Smurfs, or was he trying to find them to experiment on them? Or
Smurfs were an ingredient in, if I remember correctly, and if I remember correctly, and I feel confident that I am, but you know, this is the world, and somebody might pop out of somewhere to tell me I'm wrong. But if I remember correctly, Smurfs are an ingredient in the spell that turns whatever into gold, like turns lead into gold. Oh. And that's why he was looking for them all the time, and why he was always trying to snatch them up. And he didn't create the Smurfs, but he created Smurfette in an attempt to like trap the Smurfs.
Wait, so Smurfette isn't like an organically occurring Smurf?
No, there are no organically occurring female Smurfs in the original. I don't know if things have been changed. But yeah, so no, Smurfette was created by Gargamel as like a trap. And then I forget the details, but the trap fails and she is then like accepted into the world of Smurfdom.
Wow.
This is all based on like 1982 knowledge, so, you know, things may have changed. If I've got any details wrong, you know, I'm sorry. I'm an old lady now. But there was a time in my life where I took it quite seriously.
Wow. Like, a part of me kind of wants to do a Smurf, like, show.
Like, later on, they did this thing, and this is towards the end of my time in this world, where they brought out like these baby Smurfs, and I forget what it was. I think it was regular Smurfs, and they fucked around and found out there was some kind of weird spell or something that made them like revert to being like children. And there was a girl Smurf in that crew, and I cannot remember what her name was and what the explanation for her being is, because by that time I had sort of like, I don't want to say aged out because that didn't really happen, but I kind of like my life changed in such a way that I could no longer devote the amount of time and energy in keeping up with Smurf lore that was required. But
oh my god, I just keep the fact that they're like an ingredient in the alchemy of creating gold. This just keeps, you know, you won't remember, but I know that you enjoyed greatly when we watched Wizard People Dear Readers a couple times.
I did, every time.
And there's a part where he's describing the powers of the Sorcerer's Stone. You have got to stop.
Sorry.
I can hear all of it. And the stone powers such as lead into gold, horses into gold, immortal life, giving ghosts restored bodies, frag trolls, trolls into gold, etc. Those are all the things that it can do.
Trolls into gold.
Trolls into gold. Horses into gold. Lead into gold. Anyway, all right. So Tyrion, he's doing this thing with this. And look, I get it. And I'm not like saying I wouldn't also be tempted to do this, but he's like taking the lid off the wildfire and rolling it around in there, and it's like, oh, it's very thick, and I'm just like, can you not please?
Being really, and the whole time the guy is like, very, very careful, very, 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 very careful. There's a moment where he's describing the clay pots and how they have their like sort of textured on the outside, and the guy is like, because a smooth pot is a pot that will be dropped easily. But yeah, Tyrion is, he's not like,
he's mighty casual. That's all I'm saying.
It's not as bad. It's like shaking it up to his ear like you would like a can of V8 or something, but it's really, really close.
So he's over here like noticing that it's really thick. They mention, it's thick. And they're like, well, that's because of the cold. Once it's warmed up, the substance will run smoothly like lamp oil, for example. And they talk about how it seeps into everything, which is part of what makes it so fucking terrifying. And will even like soak into steel and burn. And he's like, so how come it doesn't soak into the pots? And they're like, oh, it do.
Oh, it does.
Fear not, sir. Yes, indeed. Also a problem.
There's a wonderful little bit about how in the storeroom they have like a drop ceiling made of sand, so that if something should happen and they should start to, if they get sparked or whatever, then there's supposed to be a spell. It doesn't sound like Tyrion buys it. It's real magic.
No.
So that the ceiling will sort of open up and the sand will come down and like douse whatever is popping off. And for a split second, Tyrion is like, you know what? I wouldn't mind seeing that, actually. And I was like, yes, me too.
And he also is like, and I guess it would also douse the poor acolyte that's in there, God, like doing his little experiment. Oops. But I think that the assumption is if that shit gets out of control, that person's dead anyway. Like,
yeah.
Point.
Yeah. To sacrifice the few for the many, or some such thinking.
Right.
So Tyrion is, we find out a couple of things. We find out that Cersei knows about this stash, which I don't remember in the show if she knows about it.
I think she does. Yeah, I think she does.
And they're very interested and kind of like, they're happy that Tyrion is there because it's the most attention they've gotten from anybody that high up in a minute.
It's so pitiful.
Yeah, he mentions like the last time a hand came, and it was a while ago.
Yeah.
But they're like very eager. They're like, well, maybe, Joffrey would like for us to come and perform some magic for him. And, we'd very much like to see the queen as well. Like, they want so badly to make their way back to their former glory. And it is so clear that they feel like if we can just get in front of the right person, they will see all that we have to offer.
And I mean, they're not wrong. That's part of him, like, keeping them away from Joffrey. It's just like, oh yeah, that's exactly the wrong fucking recipe. Like, that was part of the deal with King Aerys, was that he employed them because he used it as a means of torture. And apparently
which
they had no problem with.
By. Yeah, not at all. There was zero regret in his voice. He was talking about the past glory. There was none of that, like, well, things got out of hand, but, we're not like that anymore. There was none of that.
Nope.
But without offending any pyromancers that might be listening.
All right. I have to say, cancel culture's gone too far.
Have you ever known anybody that likes to play with fire?
Yes, and myself.
Oh, I'm glad you said that before I finished my sentence.
Well, go ahead.
People that like to play with fire are wild. there is this something in them that is just this short of being completely unhinged.
I got in trouble like in 4th grade for bringing matches into school and lighting them in the bathroom.
Oh my god!
I just like to like watch it, and that's still like my favorite way to relax is to put the what do you call it? Light our fire pit outside, and it's like one of the few things that I will stare at and not even reach for my phone. It won't even occur to me.
Just mesmerized.
Just completely entranced. I have so many different like fireplace apps on my phone. And also a fireplace screensaver for my computer. I don't use it in the summer, but I have like, I went through a lot of them to find the ones that had the most realistic sound effect and the most like close up of the fire itself to make it really look like a fireplace. And I've always wanted to live somewhere with a fireplace, and I've only pulled it off once. But it was so worth it when it happened.
This is all duly noted. My brother, one of my brothers was a firebug. And thankfully he didn't murder any of us, but he was like the kind of kid that would like go set fires, like little fires, like a grass lot or whatever.
Yikes.
And he got caught once we were vacationing. And we went on vacation with my grandmother. She took us, which was very rare for us to, like, just the two of us to go, like, out of state with her for something. But she took us to North Carolina to visit an aunt and her son. And my brother was about the same age as my cousin that lived in North Carolina. And they got caught setting, like, the side of the apartment building, like, the grass on fire.
Oh, no.
I have never seen my grandma give any of us any, like, whippings because, she was old. It's the only time I've ever seen my grandma give a whipping. And it was the funniest thing I have ever seen in my entire life. It was so fucking funny. It shouldn't be, like, it's not like child abuse is whatever, but watching her.
Child abuse is whatever.
You
heard me here first, folks.
She tore him up, and it was so funny. When he tells a story, says it's like getting beat by a ninja because she was just... Like, she wasn't even aiming anywhere in particular, so he couldn't, like, use his hands to cover his spot. He's like, I never knew where it was coming from next.
Oh, my God.
But they were terrified. Like, they found both of the boys outside, like, lighting the side of the place on fire. That's so dangerous.
Oh, yeah.
I, on the other hand, have a very healthy aversion to fire. I am not, like, entranced by it. I don't have any fascination with, like, watching stuff burn.
Can they just chill on their fucking McDonald's, please?
Nope.
Good
People
God, everybody.
want their fries, and they want them right now, damn it.
I mean, like, look, I can relate, but have some dignity. Jesus.
There is no dignity in the McDonald's drive-thru. You
know what? That's a good postcard. Gotta remember that one.
People get out of their cars to walk back to the window to yell at these poor people about something that's not right in their order. Like, they don't park and walk inside. They just stop and walk back to the window. I have learned so much about humanity since I've been living here, and I don't care for any of it.
So yeah, I'm trying to think because like I didn't light fires, but the one thing that I know I was sort of dangerous that I did was around the same time that I got in trouble in 4th grade because I got a hold of matches. I also was like in our yard and I would, those like long sort of wormy pods that hang off of certain trees that are like, it's a bunch of seeds.
Oh yeah.
But I would light those on fire.
Mm-hmm.
And they smelled amazing when they burned. They smelled like incense. They just smelled so good. And they burned really slowly because they were dense and had a lot of water in them. So they didn't flare up and get out of control. I would have to like relight them sometimes because they would sort of go out. And they just smelled so nice. And that probably could have started some ugly fires. But at the time, I was just like, but I'm just enjoying myself.
In retrospect.
Yeah. So it's funny, too, because I am somebody who suffers from such anxiety that you would really think I would not be the one to play with fire, considering I even had it as a kid, but nevertheless, I still got in with that shit.
I've been like second generation traumatized because my mother lived through a house fire as a child.
Oh God!
And that is a thing that will just stay with people. So my mom is like the kind of person that in the middle of the day or the middle of the night, when no one has said a thing, is something burning? What's that smell?
Ooh,
is something burning? She's like that kind of person. So I picked up a lot of that. So yeah, I'm just always like, is the stove on? Is that oven turned on?
It's really kind of funny. Like, we have gotten to know each other so well over the course of recording and everything. And yet the concept of, like, how we feel about fire has never come up. And I'm really surprised by that. There's always something new, you know? It's fun.
All these years, still learning about each other.
Yeah, I got to keep it fresh, everybody. This is what keeps the romance alive.
Well, Tyrion is also doing, which he asked for all these like cups, and the guy is just like 10,000. And Tyrion is just like, wait, no, they're going to be empty. I just need empty ones.
Yeah, and it turns out like they can actually supply about 10,000 were Tyrion to need it. And he really thought they were full of shit when they first promised that. And he's beginning to realize, like, oh, I think they could do it. And he doesn't know exactly how to feel about that.
Yeah. It turns out, like, a good chunk of that is going to be, like, the really old stuff. Mm-hmm. And Tyrion is like, is it stable? Mm-hmm. And I feel like the guy is like, well, as stable as this kind of stuff could be.
Yeah, it's sort of like, well, define stable. There's a real sense. Oh, no, it's not stable. If you want stable, you're in the wrong place, my friend.
He calls it fickle.
Yeah, he's like, oh, and King Aerys liked them to be shaped like fruit, so let's just call it overripe.
Oh, my God.
And I was like, I hate it, thanks.
He liked it to be shaped by, like, fruit. That is such, like, a throwaway line that doesn't really mean anything about anything except how bonkers it is, right? Because we know he liked to burn people, but he wanted the missives to be, like, fruit-shaped as you're throwing them at people. Like, is it like when you throw rotten tomatoes at somebody when you're booing them? Is it?
Oh, my God.
Like, that kind of energy.
Feed him a grapefruit.
What a bizarre. Just the whole thing is very, very bizarre.
Agreed.
But it is clear here that Tyrion is, and we know from the show, but this is a really low-key kind of genius plan to defend the city. Mm-hmm. But super, super dangerous because he could also just end up setting the whole fucking city on fire.
Yes.
And so having the empty cups, we find out towards the end, is so that I don't know if it's necessarily the Night's, not the Night's Watch, City Watch,
Gold Cloaks.
I
don't think so. I think it's just like soldiers.
Whoever's like going to be manning the defenses of the city, right?
Yeah,
are going to be practicing how to load the little cups, and they're going to start with jars. They're going to start with green paint, which
couldn't have just had paint.
This is what I'm thinking.
I know.
I didn't want to be shitty about it, but like, did it need to be green paint? But whatever. And then once they get the hang of that, they're going to graduate to using, I think, lamp oil.
Yes.
And the hope is that by the time they need to actually use all this, the soldiers will be so practiced that they'll be able to use the wildfire and not kill everybody.
Or themselves. Yeah, I mean, it's a good plan. It's just, it is nerve-wracking. And it's hard because these men, even practicing, they're never really gonna get a sense of how dangerous this shit is.
Right.
Until they work with it and see what it can do. You know? Unless they've been around for King Aerys's shit. But I don't think even Tyrion quite knows what it is he's dealing with. He's just hearing secondhand about what the effects are.
Yeah, this feels like he's not had an opportunity to see this, like, in action.
Yeah.
There's a mention that as he's leaving, that they have lit all the torches with it, so that it's like very impressive. But he's also like, I know they just lit that for me.
Mm-hmm. And the moment I'm out the door, they're gonna put that out because it's a fortune.
Mm-hmm. He also mentions Thoros.
And
his flaming sword. Is that wildfire? Am I a nincompoop?
I don't remember if it's specified that it's wildfire, because he doesn't say it exactly here. He just says that his sword, when he did the flaming thing, would need to be replaced after every tourney. So I don't think he used wildfire, but I could be wrong. I think he just... Doesn't he say, like, he coated it in something else? I'm going to have to find the spot. I wonder if I can just search. I haven't used the, like, Kindle search function here, but I'm going to go ahead and try it. Oh, building search index, and now I'm getting a little, like, scrolly thing. Come on, man. Give me my search. Oh, here it is. Yeah, it just came up. He remembered the Red Priest, Thoros of Myr, and the flaming sword he had wielded in the melee. The man had made for a colorful spectacle, his red robes flapping while his blade writhed with pale green flames. Yeah, but everyone knew there was no true magic to it, and in the end his fire had guttered out, and Bronze Jan Royce had brained him with a common mace. Wow. So yeah, that is, that quote is from Sir Davos's, POV, like earlier on. That isn't even Tyrion's. And then, and his flaming sword, Thoros always needed a new one. Yeah, so Tyrion doesn't specify that it was wildfire. He says, remembered his flaming sword, even a thin coating of wildfire could burn for an hour. So the assumption is, but when I read it, wasn't sure.
Gotcha.
So I'm glad that I found the quote from Davos's chapter to let me know. Thank you, Kindle search function. Appreciate you. Mighty useful.
Yeah, we have to remember that.
Yeah.
Think of all the things you could have helped us with over the
years.
Oh my
God, right? And that was like allegedly the reason that I used digital books, and I just have not taken advantage of that to the full extent. Anyway.
So he wraps up with these guys, and he puts his order in, and he goes to leave, and Bronn is waiting for him outside. Mm-hmm. And that takes us to our next adventure.
Yeah, so
he's got two messages. Cersei wants to see him. It doesn't say, he can't say that plainly. He has to say, you've been summoned.
Right. I love that. That has a very, like, Mab energy when Molly's like, she told me to regard her, not look at me, regard me. I was like, yeah, that feels right.
And because he says it that way, Tyrion knows immediately that it's Cersei who wants to see him, because who else is going to fucking summon him anywhere? And then also that there is a person here who wants to see him, and it is someone Frey.
Right.
Who has come with terms sued for peace. That is such a strange expression.
Right.
But from Robb Stark. And Tyrion decides to go see that guy first.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of funny to me that he decides to go see that guy first. There's a real sense of, like, I really want to get a hold of this information before Cersei does, kind of vibe.
Absolutely.
To it, you know?
He tells Bronn that making her wait is good because she'll be angrier, and being angry makes her stupid, and he prefers angry and stupid to composed and cunning.
Tactics.
Always with this guy, right?
Yep. I mean, I'm always trying to keep people from being mad at me, so that's
seems like he's working in the opposite direction of what what you yourself would do.
Indeed.
So they go to Cleos is his name.
Cleos Frey.
Yeah.
Right,
That's the guy. That's the guy who has come with Rob's terms.
Yeah, and when Tyrion sees him, he's like, "How about you take a seat? Because you look like shit." And then to himself, he's like, "He looks worse than shit. That guy looks like real shit." And I was just like, "Damn, okay."
He has had a hard time
getting
to King's Landing. It has not been an easy road. It has been fraught with dangers. He's lost several men.
You know, I didn't bring this up last episode, but I meant to. How did Alistair Thorne make it all the way down from the wall alive?
You know, I guess we're just supposed to believe that A, he's that badass, and B, he's just that objectionable. Nobody wants to be bothered with him.
Oh, I like that idea, that he's just like such a fucking ball breaker that everybody's like, forget it.
Right? Like,
hate that guy. I like it. That rings true for me.
Word starts spreading. People start avoiding him on the King's Road.
Don't go that way. And yeah, he basically, he asks primarily if there's anything they can do for his cousins or his, what are they? I'm trying to...
His brother, I think. I think it's his brother. I think it's his younger brother. Tyon.
Oh, yeah, younger brother.
Willem.
Yeah. And Tyrion says no, but we'll propose our own exchange. Which, he has to know, like, that's not going to go super well. Sorry, but probably isn't. That's just life.
Yeah, what does Rob ask for? He wants the girls.
Mm-hmm.
And because what Tyrion says is he's just like, oh, the boy wants, he's like joking, like, oh, the boy doesn't want too much, half the realm, the release of captives, hostages, his father's sword, and yes, his sisters.
Mm-hmm.
So without the snark, that's to rule in the north,
right?
To get Ice back, get his sisters back, and I guess captives of whoever they have in the field, like where war is raging, right? Like whoever's been captured. And that just feels like too much.
Too much to you or too much to Tyrion?
Oh, too much to Tyrion.
Okay.
I think that seems fair.
Yeah, that's like, personally, I mean, this is the kind of thing that I really respect when people know how to negotiate, because I don't feel like I ever know how far to push it with negotiations. You know what I'm saying? Like, I will watch it happen in front of me, and people will be really willing to push their luck in a way that I would never feel comfortable, but sometimes it'll work out. And this, of course, when I say this, I've never watched an actual negotiation. I'm talking fiction, you know?
Oh. Like I'm thinking of like every episode of Pawn Stars that I've seen.
That didn't even occur to me, but that's not a bad example to go by, actually.
Listen, I just watched an episode last night. They're doing like a best of, so it's all like big ticket items. And this guy brought in this whatever year Fender Caster and sold it for $13,000. And before that shit could be written up and put on the shelf, the son walked like 2 doors down to some guitar shop and sold it for $30,000.
Oh my God.
It happened so fast that the joke of the episode was, it was like Rick was looking for it. Like, this has been entered into the inventory. How come it's nowhere in the shop? And it's not in the shop because it got sold that fast.
Holy shit.
$13,000 and sold it for $30,000. I felt so bad for that kid. He was like 22 years old.
Oh, the poor guy.
I was disgusted. I was really disgusted.
I swear to God. But then you have really fun stuff like that. The son, he fucks up a lot. And one of my personal favorites was a sign of like vintage Coca-Cola sign that anybody who has been to a goddamn Hobby Lobby would have spotted. That shit is not original. That came out of a store selling cutesy fake vintage shit. But he sold, or he bought it for like $3,000 or something.
Oh no!
And it was worth like $14. It was so embarrassing.
I never get to see those when the customer like makes out like a bandit. That's what I live for. It's so rare.
Yeah, anytime that they have to especially early on before that kid has gotten the hang of it. Anytime they talk to the son, they wind up like, There was one too where it was Rick himself, and he bought a book banking on this particular signature that couldn't be completely verified, even with his like professional. And they had to take it to a higher up, and it was like the person who was trying to sell it to him was from out of town, and they were going to be leaving. And because he was like, "Can I call in somebody and have you come back with it?" And they were like, "Sorry, no." And it was, I don't remember whose signature it was meant to be, but it was somebody that Rick was a little obsessed with, and he just couldn't personally
let it go. Yeah, walk out the door.
Exactly. So he took the risk and he bought it off the guy, and I think he paid like 13 or 14 grand just off the assumption of truth. And the thing is, I don't think the guy was lying. I think he thought it was legit. A lot of people
that happens a lot. Yeah.
But it was not. And it took a long time for him to get confirmation that it wasn't. And you were just on tenterhooks. Like, I think it took almost 2 episodes before we found out whether he was right or not, because he had to wait for somebody to come back. And even the person who did the appraisal, you could see how sorry they felt, because they could tell that it would be really easy to fool somebody. They were like, it could have fooled me if it hadn't been for like one thing.
Right.
So... yeah, but it was like that person walked away with so much money for something that was not real. And I was just like, God bless.
Dream. Jesus Christ. I should be so lucky. One day, guys. All right. I don't know how.
Sorry.
I took us on that Pawn Stars jaunt. That was my bad. But so this deal is no good. Rob knows it's no good, and it's mentioned later that I think it's mentioned like right after this that it's not even really Rob. It's Catelyn,
right,
that wants this. So like Rob is not somewhere thinking like, oh, this is going to solve all the problems. This is the thing we've been waiting for. And Tyrion leaves this guy, tells them to like take care of him because he looks a hot mess.
Yep.
Give aid to his men that are wounded, but don't let them inside the city because they don't want how bad the conditions are in King's Landing to make it back to Rob, which also super smart.
Yeah, it didn't even occur to me. And then once he said that, I was like, oh, good call, because they could use that against you so quick.
Absolutely.
Yikes. So this is when he goes and speaks to Cersei. Yeah. And
he has the religious zealots on the way.
Oh my God, I forgot.
Is this good? These are, what are these guys'
the
names?
The Begging Brothers?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, they're definitely people to keep an eye on. I'm just going to say that. Fuck. But yeah, these dudes are just, there's nobody they're happy with. Just like in summary, I thought it was just going to be pure anti like Lannister, but they're just like everybody sucks.
They call Robert the whoremonger king. Rude.
Yeah.
The whole summer, which up to this point, everyone else has agreed that this long summer has been fantastic, and that the winter that's coming is the bummer. They call it the rotten summer. Like, they're mad it's summer.
I don't know why that is so funny to me. It's because it sounds like something Charlie Brown would say. This summer is rotten. Rats. You know what I mean? Like, anyway.
Yeah, it's pretty evocative, though. When the board did open him, a great stench rose to the heaven, and 1,000 snakes slid forth from his belly. Really?
Did they?
Oh, just like a religion, taking a little kernel of truth.
Wait, what's the kernel here?
Then a boar slit his belly open.
Oh, okay, gotcha. And then, you're like, I mean, there were snakes. It wasn't rotten. But they definitely crawled out of there.
So then he goes to see Cersei, who is displeased.
Yes, to put it mildly. And this is the reveal of somebody who knew about the Dornish thing being loose-lipped. And the people who knew were Varys and potentially Pycelle. Like, Pycelle probably would have had to, like, keep the note and then read it and then send it, you know, I guess. But yeah, so it's not a complete slam dunk since Varys knew. He can't absolutely say it's Pycelle, but you can guess that he suspects it's Pycelle.
He feels pretty, I thought he felt pretty confident. He says something like an informer and certain knowledge of an informer too. Unless he just, that doesn't mean the person, maybe just that there is an informer.
Yeah.
Okay, I see what you're saying. I took it to mean he was certain he knew who it was. But, okay.
And, yeah, this whole, like, she throws such a fucking fit here. And this whole scene, just to go over it, like, in broad strokes before we get into the details, what gets me about this is there's a point at which it's clear that she longs for the kind of reassurance he's attempting to give her regarding their position. And she wants to believe that they are in such a position of strength that while she's concerned about X, Y, and Z, they're sitting pretty, basically, regardless, and they don't really have anything to worry about. And when she asks him, like, how he knows all this, because he can see that she's beginning to be seduced by this story. And I say that as if he's lying, but he's not. She finally is like, how do you know all this? Did our father tell you his plans? And he says, no, I glanced at a map. And her response to that is like, oh, so you just made all that shit up, you fucking liar. And I'm like, girl, he used his common fucking sense about the layout and the strategy that would be extremely obvious to anybody with a modicum of experience here.
She doesn't seem to think he has any common sense, obviously.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
To her, anything that he says, if it's not coming like directly in a letter from her father, then it's trash and means nothing. Because what does he fucking know about anything? You know, it's her whole.
It's just so annoying because, like, everything he says is so completely plausible that for her to just write it off because he said it, it's like, well, look at the facts and what do you think? Like, if your brother could come up with this and it sounds like it would work to you, does that not seem like something that your father would also eventually, like, figure out? I mean, your dad is supposed to be the military brain. So trust that he would have at least as much imagination as Tyrion does, even if you don't think Tyrion is, like, you know, gifted at this. If even he can come up with it, then probably you're in a good position, you know?
So
I don't know.
I'm
I got
wondering
very irritated with her.
if it's a combination of her just not trusting and believing anything he says and thinking that he doesn't have the sense that God gave him, right? Mm-hmm. And also, I guess that the implication is that she herself is not smart enough for this to make sense too.
That's what I really think. Yeah.
Right? So, because if like you said, everything he's saying makes sense, and if you just stop and think about it, you should be able to come to those same conclusions. But I don't know if she's unwilling or incapable. You know, I'm still not sure exactly what's going on with Book Cersei as far as just how smart she really is. Mm-hmm. And she's so I'm trying to substitute a word. She can't see past her contempt and hatred for him.
Yeah.
It it clouds her vision. So even if she had the ability to think about this stuff rationally and come to these conclusions, whenever it's involving Tyrion, like, that rationale is just out the fucking window. Mm-hmm. You know?
Blinkered.
Yeah, that's a good substitution, I think, right?
I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the thing that I find always frustrating and something that I know we all fall prey to. But this also happened with Tyrion and Alistair Thorne, is letting your own petty judgments of a person cause you to completely overlook anything valid that they may be saying. Mm-hmm. And like I said, we all do it. We all do it. But it's very annoying to watch it happen, especially if you have any knowledge of how things go down. It's just like, no.
Yeah. So before they even get to, I love this expression when she talks about, because I feel like one of the first things she comes out with is like, how dare you send my little daughter away? And he says, well, that egg has hatched. Let's see what color the chick is. It's just a fun little turn.
That sounds like something a Southerner would say.
It does. It feels very like old timey. Like Wilford Brimley would say something like that.
Was Wilford Brimley Southern?
No, but he's just like an old guy that says like old timey things. And it just feels like something he would say.
That feels like a real pot calling the kettle black thing. I'm just saying, Rashawn.
It's true. It's true. That's why I like the expression so much. It really,
Before we started recording a couple days ago, Rashawn said, "What the dickens?" because something wasn't working, and I was just like, "What?"
It is a reasonable expression of frustration and consternation.
Consternation. Indeed. Darn tootin'.
So there's a lot of Tyrion, trying to calm Cersei's fears about, because she's convinced that they would murder her daughter as soon as she got there.
Yes. And
he is trying to get her to see, and I don't know if this is true or not, but he is trying to convince her that, one, Prince Doran would never just kill an innocent 9-year-old little girl. Mm-hmm. Even with like the deep-seated hatred of the Lannisters and the desire for vengeance. And he also mentions that he has offered in return, to give them the one who's responsible. I think there's a council seat in play.
Yep.
And some castles. And Cersei is like, you are offering him way too much. Mm-hmm.
And that's when Tyrion kind of like says something.
Yeah, he does.
Untoward.
Untoward, indeed.
He says, "What would you offer him? That hole between your legs?" And there's a couple slaps this scene. One of them, she slaps his wine to the floor. Another one, she slaps his face. Eventually, there comes a point where she starts crying and like shies away from him, and he says how much that hurts, like more than any of the slaps. Yeah, her cringing back and saying, "Don't touch me," was
when
somehow
he goes to comfort her.
Yeah,
yeah.
But the thing, the like subtext of this with Tyrion is really him trying to be like, not everybody is as short-sighted as you are.
Mm-hmm.
Because she's so sure that their personal hatred is going to cause them to do something that's really reckless and foolish that would ruin the, basically what amounts to international relations. And he's like, except they wouldn't, because they're not like you.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, that's not, she thinks that she's the smart one out of everybody. So just saying that they wouldn't react like you to her would sound like they're not as smart as me.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate because he's laid out what I think seems like a pretty strong case.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a moment when he makes that remark and she slaps him. He says to her that's the last time you're ever gonna hit me.
Yeah.
And she comes back don't threaten me just because you have a little piece of letter. And there's a little callback to Ned Stark and how his little piece of paper didn't protect him. And Tyrion has a real moment of being like, well, he didn't have what I have. I've got the City Watch, and I've got sellswords, and I've got clansmen. And then he's like, ooh.
Yeah.
Lord Stark probably had his delusions as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then right after this is when she sort of collapses in tears, and he tries to comfort her, and she just completely, just tells him to go away, don't touch me.
Yeah.
And there's a moment, this is the moment in this chapter, and then there's a moment in the Bran chapter where even with everything that's going on, it's like a quick moment, but it's really, really sad. Because as poisonous as their relationship is, and it is just from the well, he has this instinct, and it's awkward as fuck. But he understands that when your sister's crying, you're supposed to comfort her, right? This is what you do.
Mm-hmm.
And he tries to do it, and that's how she responds. And it's just like a kick in the fucking nards.
Wow, that was very emotionally eloquent for a second there, and then
still eloquent, just not emotional.
Oh God. But yeah, agreed. It's just really heartbreaking because he really gives her more respect than she deserves, in my opinion. In
this moment, absolutely. After the way she's been behaving their whole life, but just in the last few minutes leading up to this, she's been a real pain in the ass. Mm-hmm. But, when someone breaks down and cries in front of you, it's a really disarming thing.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to imagine. I like to imagine that I'd be sort of stoic enough that if, my enemy started crying in front of me, I would be like, yeah, that's what you get. But I don't know if I would,
I just pictured you saying it like that. I'm seeing the Rick James sort of way that he speaks. That's what you get. But yeah, no, I get what you mean.
But in that moment, it just every impulse in your body is sort of like, no, I need to comfort this person. Yeah, so it's a tough moment. And then they go right from this to talking about how well their father may or may not be doing out in the field. And she just, she seems really out of the loop or out of, I want to say her mind. That comes later. But, just not seeming like she's on the understanding how this all works.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And he is really trying to make her feel better, like you said, a little earlier. And she is it looks like they're all just sitting and waiting and nobody's doing anything. She's super frustrated, and you told me you were going to get Jamie and you haven't gotten him back. And, I don't know how she thinks this all goes.
That's pretty much his feeling as well. It's just like she says something about how if our father had been taken, Jaime wouldn't be sitting on his ass. And he's like, yeah, Jaime would be absolutely wrecking the troops that he has, throwing himself against castle walls, accomplishing nothing. And there's a real vibe of like, she has the same energy that Jaime has. She just doesn't actually have any of the tools to do anything. Right. And she sees that as a bad thing, and the rest of the world sees it as thank God. But she says once, like, I should have been born a man. Then I wouldn't have had to wait. None of this would have happened, and I was just wanted to be like, girl,
you'd be making the same.
Oh my God, you'd fuck everything up so bad.
Yeah.
And I do have some sympathy for how she reacts about Myrcella's marriage, because as she puts it, you aren't going to sell her off the way that I was sold to Robert Baratheon. And because she had gone through that, and that's like a genuine awful thing that women were put through, you know? I can understand her in that being really particularly like, what we're not going to do is inflict that exact same shit on my kid.
Yeah, but that's the thing. It's very much about her kids. It's not even like a empathy that extends beyond her immediate.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So I can't even. I mean, I guess I can respect it because, you know, it's your child and all that jazz. But really, the respect is very little.
And that's what I sort of meant when I was like talking to you about my question as to how much she loved her children versus them being an extension of her. You know, like that it was always something that I didn't really feel super confident either way. And this is a good example of that, where it's like, I definitely think she cares about Myrcella, but it does always get related back to her in a way that I'm like, it could just be that she went through something that has taught her that kind of empathy, or it could be that this is like all ego. And
I think it lies somewhere very much in the middle.
Yeah.
And I think that extends to like real life parenting as well, you know?
Yeah.
Trying to find that balance, from what I hear. You know, because it's very natural to relate everything to like your own experiences, right? And to center yourself in your
that's all I ever
story.
Do. I'm sorry, everybody that tries to come to me for anything.
So when you then imagine like you have created a person, you know, and they are in fact in a very real way a literal extension of yourself, you know, but also get to be their own people, hopefully, and trying to find that balance between understanding the things that you went through and wanting to shield your children from it or expose them to it, depending on what it is you're talking about. And remembering that they're their own people. I mean, didn't I just tell y'all how I be smelling shit that's not on fire? That don't have nothing to do with me.
God, that's true, though.
You know, and I get that, like,
I love how, like, out of context that just makes no sense at all. Well, you know how it is with me. I smell shit that's not on fire. If you just missed this episode, in future people will just be like, what the fuck did that mean? But yeah, I get
it. But, so yeah, it's kind of that thing. Like, I believe she really does love her children to the best of her ability. I also believe that she is like wildly self-centered, and that impedes or like, you know, it gets in the way of her ability to love her children probably more fully.
That's interesting. Yeah,
but I think she loves them in what she thinks love is.
Okay, that hit for me. Ooh. God, all right, yeah. God, that's so depressing. Jesus Christ.
Sorry.
I'm sorry. I just like, and it's funny because like I didn't think to phrase it that way with her, but there's somebody that I know who had been taken advantage of a lot by their family in terms of like everything, finances and just assistance and whatnot, and they wound up marrying somebody who leans on them for everything. And I said about them, maybe to them that's what love looks like. And that's like something that I could understand with like an actual person, but this fictional character, it never occurred to me to be like, maybe they just don't get what it means to like love somebody. They don't understand how that works, but we all have things that look like love to us that we get taught are love, and then we grow up and we're like, oh God.
If we're lucky.
If we're lucky, yeah. We don't even necessarily ever get there, but oof. All right, shit. That's just so... That just got to me. I don't know why that got to me so bad, but it just hit. Okay, well. And how does this chapter end? I'm going into the... I had the search bar open, and now I'm trying to find my spot. Here it is. Okay.
He's telling her, reassuring her about, how well positioned they are. Mm-hmm. And she tells him the thing that he got it from a map, and that's when she, like, loses her shit. And,
oh, that's right. He hands over Stark's demands, and it's like, if we weren't winning, he wouldn't have sent us this. And her response immediately is, why did you get it? This should have come to me. Mm-hmm. And he says something like, What is a hand's job if not to hand you?
Yeah,
like, oh,
basically. And
you suck.
I wasn't expecting the booing.
Get off the stage. God.
Yeah, so he lets her go, and he thinks to himself about, like, having the knowledge that there's an informer. And that's pretty much that.
Mm-hmm. So then we go to Bran.
Bran.
I don't know why.
That's how it sounds. At the beginning of each chapter, that's what it sounds.
It's so funny to me. It's just Bran. It's so, like, there's something so dead about it. I don't know. But yeah, this is a feast day.
Yeah.
Good times. Great oldies. But yeah, Bran is such a curious, because like, he's a kid.
Mm-hmm.
But he still like knows more shit than a kid in our universe of the same age would know. And, a lot of that is just the nature of the way everybody lives. But it's really wild, like, just to jump ahead a bit, when Mira and Jojen come in and they make their vows. And he has a moment of, like, shit.
I don't know
what should I say? Nobody taught me. And then he's like, may your winters be short and your summers abundant. And I was like, God damn. Okay.
He's like, yeah, that's a good one. People always like this one.
I was just like, well, yeah. I mean, off the top of your head, okay. Well done, sir.
Yeah, this whole chapter is I had moments of having to remind myself, that this is still just a kid. It's such a strange situation to have this 8-year, almost 9-year-old boy kind of holding court in this very sort of a performative way. He does not get to make any real decisions, right? He doesn't get to make any calls, but he has to participate in all of these things.
Yep.
He can't just like, nah, I'd rather not. It's not like you're going to let me do anything that means anything. Mm-hmm. He has to still like show up. He's got to sit at the head of the table. There's this wonderful little... Okay. I remember that this is a thing I had an issue with when I tried to read the books the first time.
Okay.
I am just not here for long conversations about the food. I know that's your jam. Not my jam. So my eyes start to glaze over a little bit when we have like these long feast scenes. But there's this wonderful little bit where it's custom to like treat other people. Here, have some of this duck. you know, send some cakes down to this person. And then Lewin is like, you got to get something to the freeze. So he gives them beets and turnips.
I forgot about that.
Which,
here, take my trash.
Because it's universal, right? I don't care what universe this is. Beets and turnips is trash, right? We all agree.
Listen, I want that to not be true. I have tried to like beets so many times.
No.
I've tried. It's like olives for me. I don't like olives either, and I have tried so many times. I want to like olives. They're in so many foods.
Oh my God. I don't like them in food. I just like to eat them right out the jar. I got no use for them to be in any food.
Wow. I don't know what to do with that.
Yeah, I like an olive loaf or some other such nonsense.
Oh God, ew, no.
I like black olives in a Greek salad, and that's probably it for me.
Yeah, I pick that shit out of the salads that I eat.
Do
I can't
you?
do it. And even if they like have too much juice on them, they'll leave the taste, and I sometimes can't even do that.
Oh, that makes me so sad.
Well, listen, now you know how I just felt when you were like, I don't care about the food descriptions in these books. Just stab me. Just stab me right in the heart.
But beets are like the devil's cranberries. That's what I call them.
What?
Because not every year, but more times than I'm comfortable with admitting, so I'll just tell y'all because we're all close friends. I will be at dinner, usually around a holiday, and I will mistake a plate of sliced beets for what I think is a plate of sliced cranberries.
Oh, like cranberry sauce in the can?
Yes.
Oh, I could see how you could make that mistake.
Right? So then you go in all hard, going in fast and hard for what you think is about to be cranberry goodness. And this shit is beets.
Oh, the flavor profile could not be more opposite. Cranberry is the bright, acidic, sweet, and then we've got like something that literally tastes like mold.
Whole holiday ruined. And I've done it like twice. The last time. All right, y'all. I'm sorry we're derailing. I was talking about how we have to keep these shirts. I gotta get up in the morning. Real quick story. Like 2 Thanksgivings ago, I was having Thanksgiving dinner at my husband's family, and someone handed me a plate of cranberries. Right? Mm-hmm. But I had been so scarred, I just assumed that they were beets, and I said out loud, "Ew, no!" To a plate of cranberries. And the whole family was like, "The fuck is wrong with you?"
Oh my God. It's like created a rudeness in you for no reason.
So then I had to explain to my family the whole thing.
And they were like, "It's okay. It's okay. You're safe now. It's cranberries."
Anyway.
Man.
So, but I really did like that part of where Bran like shares, some of his victuals with his guests because it's like custom to do that. So that part of the feast I like. There was also some fun moments where they get like really rowdy towards the end and everybody's dancing.
Yes.
And that was fun as well. So seeing these Reed children, this is early.
Mm-hmm.
We met them, I think, out in the wild in the show.
That sounds right. Yeah.
Right? Like after they had already left Winterfell and they were like, on their journey.
Mm-hmm.
This is really cool that they show up to Winterfell, especially because we didn't think anybody was coming. Mm-hmm. Because no one has visited from, where do they live? The
Greywater Watch.
Greywater. And they call them like frogmen and they live in a swamp. Mm-hmm. It sounds terrible. One of the phrases like they all have green teeth, which is just rude.
Because they eat frogs.
Right? It turns out not to be true. But I mean, It's not racist, but it's some kind of ist.
It's like
is it classist?
Bigoted?
It's some kind of something happening with the way that they are all regarding this house. The description of how they live, it seems just to be a very, very different culture, and I guess they're so isolated that, and they don't come out to visit, that all of these like rumors sort of swirl around them and what their lives are like, you know?
Yeah.
Which is just sort of an unfortunate byproduct of all of us. Whenever there's like people that we don't get to know much about, we just fill in the blanks with whatever bullshit we can come up with.
Indeed. Yeah, this whole thing is, it's like Bran struggles with it as well because he's heard all kinds of things about them, but he also knows that like Howland Reed was one of his dad's closest friends. And so he's just like, I don't get it.
It's like trying to reconcile the two. Like, how can that be?
Yeah.
It's also funny too when Bran is remembering the story, right? When he's talking about Arthur Dane and how Howland Reed saved his life, and then his father gets really quiet and doesn't want to like talk anymore. And I guess, of course, we understand that because this would have happened. The moment that he's talking about is right before he goes up into the tower and sees his sister, right? So that would make sense why his father would sort of shut down and not want to tell the rest of the story.
Yeah.
But also, I don't know when in the show this was. I don't know if it's book true or not. But at some point in the show, it was kind of revealed that when Reed saved him, the way he did it was kind of like not very honorable. Did he like stab Dane in the back or something?
I don't know if we know that.
Do you remember that from the show though?
No, I don't.
It was like when Bran was doing the sort of like he was traveling to see bits and, you know, he could go back and witness things. And he goes back to the Tower of Joy and I think watches. And I might be way off base, but
that doesn't sound familiar to me. But I have forgotten a lot of the show.
Yeah.
So
I think that that's what ended up being revealed, and then there was like some like inner conflict with like, you know, why would father like that wasn't honorable and blah 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 blah. But again, like I don't know, that was so towards the end of the show, so they were off book by then,
right?
So yeah, but the reason that my mind went there is because when I was thinking about why Ned would sort of shut down and not want to talk about the story anymore, my first thought was, of course, about his sister, but then my second thought was that memory and being like, oh, maybe he doesn't want to think about this anymore because he saved his life, but he did it in such a way that there was no honor in it. But
well, I guess we'll have to wait and find out. Dun, dun, dun. Well, let's see. I'm trying to find the spot. Oh, right. I forgot this too. Bran is talking with Luwin, and he didn't want the phrase at the high table, but Maester Luwin insists because Arya is going to marry one of them, and so they'll be kin soon. And Bran is just like, yeah, Arya's not going to do that. And Maester Luwin does not want to hear it, so, you know, there's no choice in the matter.
yeah.
But I did think it was funny that Bran is just absolutely, like, there's no doubt in his mind she will find a way to resist this happening over my dead body.
Yeah. I guess Luwin is in his position where he can't, you know, he can't be like, yeah, I know.
Right.
But you got to figure he knows her just as well as he knows the other children. He's got to know in his heart.
I wonder, like, I could see a person in their position, and by they I mean like anybody who is meant to be the supervisor of children, hoping that by the time they get old enough to realize what their duty is, that they will submit to it eventually, right? You know? I
love the phrase, when they get older, they'll recognize their duty, when we're talking about like being like 14.
I mean, yeah. But I mean, Bran's out here saying, "May your winters be short" and shit, and he's 8 years old. So I feel like that's a fair assumption. They're built different.
Well, yeah. For them, I mean, he's not wrong. Like to think that by the time she's 14, she will understand her duty and do what she's told. But like reading this from where I live, that's just wild. Like 14-year-olds. Have you met a 14-year-old?
Yes.
Ugh. Yes. Ugh.
I was a 14-year-old.
Oh.
We just both had to take a pause.
It was so awful.
Worst.
It really was. Good Lord. So it's getting late. Bran is tired. He has had plenty to eat. It is hot. It is noisy. These motherfuckers are drinking now and getting real boisterous. They're dancing. They're banging servant winches up against the wall.
Oh my God.
When he's trying to leave to go to bed.
And fucking Hodor is just like, "Oh, sweet," and just like stops to watch. And Bran is just like, "Man, no, we gotta go to bed." He's not even like, "What are you doing? Stop it!" He's just like, no, Hodor. Like a dog who stops to sniff at something. They're like, "Don't eat that."
But right before he leaves, this is the moment that I thought was really like surprisingly emotional, considering the chapter really there wasn't much happening and you don't think much is going to happen. Bran has a moment where he's just looking around the room and it hits him all the people that he used to see. Well, he thinks about the last time they were all together like this, and it had been when Robert showed up. And Bran is just looking and thinking about all the people that are gone, that are like dead gone, which is a good number of them. And then others who have just, gone off to war and he doesn't know if he's going to see them again. Of course, his brothers, his sisters. And it's just like, again, you're just reading and everything is fine. And then all of a sudden, bam.
Yep.
You're all choked up.
Yep. Yeah, it's really hard to read a kid as young as him having this, because this is the sort of thing you start to go through. I think probably in your late 30s is when you really begin to lose enough family to old age or what have you, that family get-togethers change significantly. The makeup of the people is just different. But he's 8. And having lost so many so suddenly, it wasn't over the course of time because nature, it was this sudden, violent, awful thing.
Yeah.
And, ugh, God, the poor kid. I really felt for him.
And it's just him and Rickon, who is, we don't really hear much from him because he's still just a baby. So he's not able to offer much in the way of comfort or support to Bran in any of this, So it's just Bran in a lot of ways. I want to mention, too, that the Reed kids mentioned they would like to see the direwolves. And Bran is really, moved by that.
Yeah.
He just is kind of like, huh.
I don't know about you, but I would definitely be asking to see him.
I absolutely would, too. I think the thing is, most people, I guess, are so naturally afraid of them that they don't even want to see them up close.
Yeah, that's true.
And so that they are afraid of them. And who says that they're going to bite him? Oh, it's one of the Freys. They better watch out. They'll take a bite out of your little brother, because it's Mira and Jojen, right? Those are the Reed kids.
Yes.
So the brother is Jojen. He's the one that wants to see them, and so then the Frey is just like, oh, you better be careful.
Fucking Freys, always chiming in with their bullshit.
Just fucking useless. Oh shit.
What?
So, you know how in the show,
Oh, you gave me a start. I thought your recording had stopped.
No. You know how on this show, the thing happened where Theon comes back and he pretends to string up the Bran and Rickon, right? But it's just like two like country boys or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Is it the phrase in the book?
What do you think I'm doing?
Is it wrong that I want it to be the phrase, these two little kids?
You're out here just being like, tell me how the thing goes in the future that I don't know about. I will remind you, ma'am.
I don't necessarily wish to see these kids murdered and strung up. I'm just saying that if
Definitely
two kids have to be, it would be almost satisfying if it turns out to be these two.
Wow. That is some bloodthirsty shit, ma'am.
Yeah. It probably shouldn't be, though, because they're highborn, and I can't imagine, getting away with that. So it probably won't be them. But a girl can dream.
A girl can dream about child murder.
They're just such awful little shits, though.
They are. They suck. Some kids suck. It's just a fact of life.
It's true. And hopefully, they grow out of it,
Hopefully.
Some don't. Some just stay sucking forever.
I'm real curious about the parents out there who know their kids suck. Because, there's the cliche about parents all thinking their kids are great. But there have to be some parents out there who are like, yeah, no, my kids are some of the, garbage kids that everybody hates.
They're out there.
It must be awful to know that.
I think the worst is when your children grow and you see that they're not growing into better people. I think that you can deal with, crappy kids because there's always the, the kids are just going to be shitty because that's what kids do, and a lot of kids go through growing pains. A lot of people will take some long time to figure out, who you are and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
But then your kid is, 25. And they're still the fucking worst. Then it's what do you do with that?
This is why I can't handle kids. It's too much. It's too much pressure. It's too much potential for disappointment. So, y'all are braver than me.
Every person, I hats off to you. It's such a leap of faith to have a child. You are just telling the universe, give me what you got. It's true. It is a remarkable leap and courage and just all right, we're going to do this. Fuck it.
Give me what you got.
I marvel at it all the time. I just think it is amazing. I don't know how people do it. I really don't. But y'all out there doing the damn thing. So
yeah, I like to get my orders custom, bespoke. I'm not out here trying to do a lottery system where it's just well, who knows? All right, so yeah, there's a moment here too before he has that with the realization of how many people are gone, where he has a waking dream. He's looking around at everybody getting drunk. And then it's too hot in here and too noisy, and they are all getting drunk. Bran itched under his gray and white woolens, and suddenly he wished he were anywhere but here. It is cool in the Godswood now. Steam is rising off the hot pools, and the red leaves of the weirwood are rustling. The smells are richer than here, and before long the moon will rise, and my brother will sing to it. Bran, Sir Roderick said, you do not eat. The waking dream had been so vivid, for a moment Bran had not known where he was. That one always gets me, because that just... he's, right in the middle of everything, and apparently his eyes are open, because Roderick isn't you can't sleep in front of everyone. He's just you're not eating. So, that's pretty wild for that shit to just start happening out of nowhere in the midst of it all,
I feel like this is the first time we've seen something like this too, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I mean, those kids just showed up.
So, yeah, the Cranagmen. That's the name that they go by as a I don't want to say as a race, as a people, I guess.
Yeah.
And let's see. As the newcomers walked the length of the hall, Bran saw that one was indeed a girl, although he would never have known it by her dress. She wore lambskin breeches and a jerkin, and was as slim as a boy. And she has a frog spear, which I always enjoy.
And no boobs.
No titties. And then her brother is younger, has no weapons, and has bright green eyes, but regularly white teeth, which I almost imagine Bran is a little disappointed by.
Yeah, and he's all dressed in green, too. Mm-hmm. Which I guess got Bran excited for the teeth and was very... just kind of like, oh.
Oh.
Not as advertised.
So yeah, this is when she says, my Lord Father has sent us here to say the words again for all our people. We pledge the faith of Greywater, they said together. Hearth and heart and harvest we yield up to you, my lord. Our swords and spears and arrows are yours to command. Grant mercy to our weak, help to our helpless, and justice to all, and we shall never fail you. I swear it by earth and water, said the boy in green. I swear it by bronze and iron, his sister said. We swear it by ice and fire, they finished together. And yeah, this is when Bran says, may your winters be short and your summers bountiful. And this is when they ask about the dire wolves. And let's see, do they truly eat frogs? Aye, Sir Roderick said, frogs and fish and lizard lions, all manner of birds. And I really love Bran commanded the serving men to bring them mutton chops and to slice off the auroch and fill their trenchers with beef and barley stew.
Because he's like, maybe they don't have sheep and cattle.
Yeah, maybe they really like this is the good stuff and they just don't get that. So I'm going to give them some of our good stuff. It's honestly kind of a sweet little moment, you know?
It's adorable. And it's really like a moment of really seeing someone and thinking about what someone else's situation might be.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You know? It's incredibly thoughtful, even though it's a little funny. And it says it seemed that they liked it well enough, and he says the girl caught him staring at her and smiled, and he blushed and looked away. It's very sweet.
A girl. So this is when Hodor carries him outside, and he runs into those two fucking up against a wall. More power to you. I don't think I've ever fucked up against a wall.
I mean,
I don't think I've done it. I've fucked like over a counter, like but bent over, not like face front. Although it doesn't say that she's facing front.
No, it does not.
So I sort of had this idea that he was holding her up. And I'll tell you what, even in my like slender days, I have yet to meet a man who could hold me up. That's some porn star shit. Like that just does not. There's all kinds of stuff that dudes who have never actually had sex and only watch porn think that they're going to be able to do, and they get a bit of an awakening when it comes to how heavy a human body actually is and what their strength capacity is, because
knees start shaking and shit.
Yep. It's one thing to be able to like hold that weight. It's another thing to be able to thrust and hold that weight and move any other body part at the same time. But anyway, so he goes to bed, and he had asked Lord Eddard if the Kingsguard were truly the finest knights in the Seven Kingdoms. No longer, he answered, but once they were a marvel, a shining lesson to the world. And this is when he asks who was the best, and his dad tells him about Sir Arthur Dane, who fought with a blade called Dawn, forged from the heart of a falling star. And that is just the coolest. Forged from the heart of a fallen star. How rad.
Yeah, it's pretty dope. And it says that, he would have killed me, but for Howland Reed, and then Father got sad and wouldn't say anymore. And he goes to sleep with all of this in his head, knights and fighting and all that.
Mm-hmm.
But that isn't what he dreams about at all.
No.
Because when the dream does come, he's right back in the Godswood. And he is... It's so funny the way it's written. He is clearly in his wolf.
Right.
And it appears that Rickon is also... Or maybe it's not Rickon. Maybe he just maybe he's in the wolf, but he's the other... Okay, I'm sorry, y'all. Y'all heard I'm trying to figure that out as I was talking. He's in his wolf, and then the wolf is with Shaggy, I guess. Shaggy Dog.
I mean, we don't know that Rickon isn't. Because the way he's described, because Jojen and Mira are here. Mm-hmm. And the young one says the black one is full of fear and rage, but the gray is strong. Stronger than he knows. And full of fear and rage feels fair to me as a description of Rickon. You know what I mean?
That's fair, because we talked earlier about how this idea that the direwolves are, sort of manifestations of the Stark kids, in some fashion. Mm-hmm. And then we keep hearing over and over just how Shaggy Dog is just out here wilding. Mm-hmm. He just and it makes sense. So yeah, okay. Oh, I like that.
Poor Rickon. I really feel for him. He's so young, and all of this shit starts going down, and it just... Ugh.
Everybody is gone. Mother, father, all the brothers and sisters. There's all these fucking people coming in that he doesn't know. It must be horrendous.
And he kind of makes friends with the Freys, but his wolf nearly bites one of them, or does bite one of them, I think.
Yeah. He had it coming though.
Oh, I mean, I'm not mad. Yeah. And Jojen comes forward, and his sister's be careful, and he's like, this is not the day I die. And I was like, shut up. Anytime somebody has that kind of dialogue, I get so impatient with it. Don't act like you know. That is the number one rule of seeing the future, is don't get cocky, kid. You just don't play with it. Stop it.
They can't help it. Can't help it.
Infuriates me. And he's, I'm sure he's right. But as soon as you start having that sort of attitude, it starts to get hairy.
And you're just begging the universe to come and show you
honestly.
I'll show you what's what.
I just think it's foolhardy. So he touches the wolf, and then that causes Bran to fall within his dream, and that is the end of the chapter.
Yeah, he's always falling. It always comes back to that, it feels like.
Poor Bran.
Yeah. So yeah.
So what do you? I'm gonna look, and if it's not exciting, I will just tell you. What do you think the next 2 chapter POVs are?
Well, it's been so long now. I feel like since we've seen several people.
True.
Daenerys. And either Catelyn or... No, we just had Arya. We just had Sansa. Daenerys and Catelyn, or Daenerys and Davos.
Okay. Do you want me to tell you?
Yeah.
All right, well...
I really don't know how to answer that.
All right, I won't tell you.
Last time you told me because I was so off base, you feel like you had to warn me.
Yeah, because it was 2 people we had just had. So I was like, "Aw, she's going to be disappointed. We're just right back with those folks again."
But as long as it's not just those folks again, don't tell me.
It's not Bran and Tyrion.
Okay.
I will say that. And we have new patrons this week. We've got Lauren Bennett, Bobby Waclawick, I think. Catherine McKeown, Linnea, Chris Prather, and Destination Toast. Which I have so many questions. Is Toast the destination? Do you call destination toast if you're on a trip and you have it, like a destination wedding. Like, that's the kind of toast you have in France. Destination toast. You know what I mean? Or is it like you make a toast at your destination? Like, haha, we've arrived. Or is it a toast that you make, like... I have a lot of questions about it. So, destination toast, let me know all the details on your name, and that'll be enlightening. And other than that, just a reminder to check out the Discord, everybody. We are getting it set up. It's been a bit of a ball breaker. Apologies if things are weird when you arrive. We are working on it. It takes so much longer than you would expect because we were all apparently working with like partial information. So some things that we thought we had gotten done have to be sort of undone and redone. And thus, there's been a bit of confusion. But even so, we've had a lot of activity. It's been pretty active, and especially in like Song of Ice and Fire and Dresden Files spoiler chats. And I'm just enjoying having somewhere else to go other than Facebook, because Facebook will just suck my soul right out. And I feel like there was another thing I was going to mention, but I don't remember what it was. You guys know where to find us. Unspoiledpodcast.com, Facebook.com/unspoiledpod, but warning, it's just not giving me notifications anymore. If you would like to get in touch, please email unspoiledpodcast@gmail.com. I won't necessarily always be able to email you back, depending on what you email about. But if it's something that's like critical where you're trying to get access to something, I do my best to get back in touch on those. Also, avoid using Patreon Messenger, which has been having a lot of issues lately. Just email is always the best way. And I think that's everything. So I hope that you guys have been enjoying the coverage. Appreciate you all being patient when we had to be gone for a couple of weeks, but we are back on track. And until next time, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
Bye, guys.
Joffrey, Cersei, Walder Frey, Meryn Trant, Tywin Lannister.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.